I had no idea that lunch hour would be the last normal hour of my life. One minute I was holding a hand of cards, laughing about nothing. The next, I was buried alive, pinned in the dark, fighting just to keep my own face clear enough to breathe, with no idea if I'd ever see daylight again. It was just another lunch shift. That's the part people don't believe when I tell them about it now. January 15th, 1919, and Boston was having one of those freak warm days, close to 40 degrees after a brutal cold stretch, the kind of afternoon where you almost forget it's winter. A few of us had even gone without our coats that morning. At the firehouse, me and George Leahy and a couple of the other guys were doing exactly what we did most lunch hours, sitting around a table playing cards. A local stonecutter who liked to hang around had stopped by to chat. Nothing about that day felt different. Nothing about it felt dangerous. I heard it before I understood it. A low rumble that kept building, like a train derailing somewhere close. Within a couple of seconds, it wasn't a noise anymore. It was a force. The entire first floor of our firehouse got ripped out from under the building, and the floor above us, the second story, just dropped straight down on top of us, like the whole place had been gutted from the inside. I didn't have time to stand up, let alone run. One second I had cards in my hand, the next I was buried under broken timber, furniture, and whatever else used to be a working fire station. It wasn't until the dust and shock cleared enough for me to think that I caught the smell. Sweet, thick, everywhere. Molasses. A storage tank across the street, 50 feet tall, holding over 2 million gallons of the stuff, had ruptured and sent a wave more than 25 feet high crashing into our building at something like 35 miles an hour. I was pinned in a gap, maybe 1.5 feet high, jammed in with broken beams and debris pressing in from every side. And it was already coming in around me. Not water, molasses, warm and impossibly thick, filling the space I was trapped in inch by inch. My first fight wasn't to get loose. It was just to breathe. I had to keep clearing it off my own mouth and nose because it didn't drip away like water would. It sat there, clinging, like trying to breathe through syrup poured straight onto your face. I could move my arms and legs a little, which I'd come to realize was lucky. Not everyone trapped down there could say the same. The space I was in happened to back up against a wall that sloped down toward the harbor. There was a section of broken timber blocking what used to be an opening behind me, and I figured if I didn't get rid of it, the molasses pooling around my head was eventually going to win. So I kicked, over and over, as hard as I could manage from a position where I had almost no leverage, slamming my legs against that timber until it finally gave way. The second it broke open, the molasses around me found somewhere to go. The level around my face stopped climbing. That one piece of broken wood was the only thing standing between me breathing and me drowning where I lay. I want to be clear. That wasn't bravery. That was pure animal panic doing the smart thing by accident. I'd take that trade every time. Just a few feet from me, George Leahy wasn't as fortunate. There was nowhere for the molasses around him to drain. He was pinned by heavy debris that had come down through the floor above, among it a piano and a pool table, with no way to shift his weight or get clear. He kept his head up out of the rising syrup as long as his body would let him. I could hear him the whole time, calling out, holding on, and I kept yelling back that help was coming, that he needed to keep his head up, that he just had to hang on a little longer. I believed it when I said it. None of us trapped in there had any idea yet how big this thing was, that it had taken out whole buildings, that people in the open street were drowning in it too. After a while, his voice stopped reaching me. I don't know exactly when it happened, only that I went from hearing him to not hearing him. And somewhere in those hours, the exhaustion and the rising molasses did what nothing else in that wreckage could do. I was close enough to that drained opening that rescuers got to me sooner than most. Coming up out of that wreckage into the cold January air felt like getting shocked awake. Molasses traps heat against your skin, so the contrast hit hard. It took the rescue crews far longer to reach George. By the time they cut their way down to where he was gone. He'd been suffocated by the flood, worn down after holding himself above it for as long as he physically could. It wasn't until afterward that I learned how long that tank had been a problem waiting to happen. It had been built only a few years earlier, in a rush, and it had leaked from almost the day it went up. Bad enough that workers used to complain about new cracks and strange groaning sounds, and the company had reportedly painted the whole thing brown just to hide the leaks running down its sides. None of us at the firehouse thought twice about it. It was just part of the street, the way the elevated train was part of the street. By the end of that day, 21 people were dead across the neighborhood, and over 150 injured. Whole buildings had been knocked off their foundations. Horses had to be put down because there was no freeing them from the muck. And George Leahy, a man I'd shared a card table with that same afternoon, was one of the names on that list. I got out because of the few feet of position and a piece of rotten timber that happened to give way under my boots. George didn't get that same break. I've never been able to shake how thin that line really was.